guys, you would have seen some iconic clips or some very nice clips of the iconic Ford Mondeo ST220 3-litre V6. This was a car that I owned quite a while back, going back about 7 years ago now, 8 years ago. I owned it for 2 years, had an immense amount of fun in that car. It's truly one of Ford's great hatchbacks, even though it was quite a large car, the Mondeo. Now, the Mark III Mondeo actually comes from the factory with very good handling. I did lower my car with IBAC lowering springs. If I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't fit the IBAC lowering springs. They were really good in terms of reducing body roll and giving the car quite a good stance. But I do think sometimes on A and B roads, the car would bump quite a fair bit, scrape the ground sometimes, especially when the camber changes as well. And I don't necessarily think you need to change what the manufacturer had intended. In terms of the tune of the car, so it was 220 horsepower. From all of my reading at the time, this car actually didn't need any type of remap. Obviously, it was a normally aspirated engine, and so you didn't really need to tinker with it or change anything. The power that the car was making was actually quite close to what it would have come from the factory. Really, really good car to drive. Below 4,000 RPM, it would just pootle along, not really much happening. But once it got to 4,000, then it would really come into life with a buttery smooth, hard pull all the way to the red line, and a really glorious sound, as you've just been hearing. And it was an amazing car to drive. Probably the most common problem that you would have is sometimes split hoses, could leak coolant, engine oil leak as well. You did get some weeping of the engine oil. Now, generally, my car did start to lose a little bit of oil, but took it to the mechanic. He checked it over. We could go into some investigative work to try and figure out where it's leaking from and rectify it. But it was better just to, top it up until the problem got worse. And generally, he advised me to always keep it above the minimum, obviously, but you don't need to put it right the way to the max line. And that would hopefully slow some of the loss in oil, and indeed, like maybe every 2,000 miles or so, maybe a little bit more, if I remember, that I would have to top it up with a little bit of oil. Otherwise, it was fine. Apart from that, it's the usual things. Quite a heavy car, so it was with hard driving, heavy on the brake pads and discs. Changed them a couple of times, just using the original Ford stuff. MPG was pretty terrible, 22 miles per gallon. If you're really going for it, then you're 18, 17, not uncommon. And on a long run, you're probably looking at somewhere with mixed driving about 26 to 28. If you're really, if you're stuck in a traffic jam or a long average speed camera for a 150 mile journey, then you're probably looking at just eking above 30 miles per gallon. So it wasn't an economical car. It's quite a thirsty engine. It's a big engine, but very thirsty. But, obviously it was such a special car, really one of those cars that until you've driven it, you kind of, you don't really know what you're missing, because for a big car, perfect engine, but amazing handling, on a B road, this car was very nimble, predictable, so much grip that you could just go around the corner and the car would be providing you with the communication that you would expect from a performance car. So really miss that car very much. Unfortunately for me, it would have been one of the cars that I kept for a very long time, but again, about 7 years ago now, somebody crashed into the back of it on Christmas Day. So it wrote off the car. It was parked, but the car was parked outside my house, and somebody crashed into it and drove off, and so the car was a write-off. So it had a bit of a sad end. I was truly gutted, because it was one of those cars that I wanted to keep for a very long time, and the person that I bought it from had owned the car for like 6 years or something like that, and I was intending to do the same. But unfortunately, that wasn't what was destined. But I'm very pleased that I managed to own such an awesome car that is the Mondeo ST220.